Would you believe that a socialist labor leader could get nearly 1 million votes in the US presidential election? Now, what if I told you that Eugene Debs did just that, but from the inside of a federal prison cell? So how did he do it? Working on the railroad since he was 14, Debs grew up in a rapidly industrializing country. In the decade before 1890, industrial growth in the US nearly doubled, fueled by the largest wave of new immigrant workers ever in US history. This was the peak of the Gilded Age. It was a time of immense levels of inequality, with the rise of ever more powerful industrialists like Rockefeller, Carnegie, and Morgan on the one end, and on the other end, the emergence of new forms of urban poverty and the horrors of modern capitalism. In the struggle against the growing power of capital, Debs set out to form the American Railway Union in 1893, a new kind of union. One of the first industrial unions that would organize all workers across the railroads, skilled and unskilled, black and white, together in one union. The next year, the union put those principles to the test and led the famous strike against the Pullman Car Company. Over 250,000 railroad workers joined across 27 states in the Pullman strike. Ultimately, President Grover Cleveland himself stepped in to end the strike. For his leadership of the union, Debs was sent to jail. He went into prison as a labor leader, but would emerge a new man. Reading a steady stream of socialist literature sent to him by supporters, Debs contemplated his experiences during the Pullman strike and his political imprisonment. Leaving the prison walls behind, he had become a committed socialist ready to fight for a new world. In the following years, Debs would work to unite the progressive wing of the labor movement into a socialist political party. He ran as the party's first presidential candidate in 1900 and secured 88,000 votes. His campaigns called for a radical program to transform society. Naturally, as a unionist, he demanded workers' rights to organize and improved wages and working conditions. Going much further, though, he advocated for universal health care, public ownership of major industries, guaranteed unemployment insurance and pensions, drastically cutting military spending, and women's suffrage and gender equality. With the dawn of World War I, Debs became perhaps the country's most outspoken anti-war leader. American politicians began to drum up war fever to shift popular sentiments to support US entry into the fray across the Atlantic. After President Woodrow Wilson led the US into the war in 1917, he reinstituted the draft to force over 2.8 million working-class Americans to join the Army. In a now famous speech Debs gave in Canton, Ohio, he denounced the war once again and called on working people to resist the draft and refuse to participate in this war any longer. With his impressive oratorical skills, he blasted the men who sent them to die. The working class who fight all the battles, the working class who make the supreme sacrifices, the working class who freely shed their blood and furnish the corpses, have never yet had a voice in either declaring war or making peace. It is the ruling class that invariably does both. They alone declare war, and they alone make peace. Soon after, he was denounced by Wilson as a traitor to his country, arrested by federal authorities, and charged with 10 counts of sedition for his vocal opposition to the war. He would be sentenced to 10 years in a federal penitentiary. After the end of World War I, Debs remained a political prisoner, but would not allow this to stop him from fighting for the socialist transformation of the country. In 1920, Debs ran for president for his fifth and final time, this time from prison, where he would write speeches for dissemination and work with his campaign team, though severely limited by the prison's restrictions. His campaign wasn't shy about his imprisonment either, making campaign pins that read, "For President, convict number 9653. Despite these challenges, Debs' message rang throughout the country. He ultimately received nearly 1 million votes, achieving the highest ever vote count for an American socialist presidential candidate to date. Despite his success as a presidential candidate with the popular vote in the face of such incredible repression, Debs never received any electoral votes due to the extremely undemocratic nature of the political system in the US. However, Debs was never deterred by this. He knew the game was rigged, but he played it anyway to expose the game itself and those who ran it. The elections were just a platform to send his message. Rather, he placed his faith for the real path to working class power and ultimately our salvation, not just in the ballot box, but with the organization of working people and the undying fighting spirit to create our own future.